Welcome to Defeated Tragedy to Triumph. We right back here again. We at it. The show of all show. Podcast of all podcasts. Y'all gonna get the real right here. You're gonna get the knowledge. You're gonna get it all right here. The truth. You're gonna get everything right here. Each and every Sunday, you need to subscribe. All right, 6 o'clock on YouTube. Go to Arnold Griggs. Subscribe, man. Push the button. The brother to the left of me, CLR, my event high school buddy. All right, my brother. He's here to tell y'all his story, what he's been through, all right, and what he's doing now. All right, to the God, CLR, introduce yourself, brother. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, my brother. Wow.
All right.
Listen, I defeated tragedy, and I went into a triumph, right? My name is Philip White. I'm better known as CLR the God, and I'm here to share with you my story with the honorable brother Wise.
Peace.
Peace.
All right.
So now, you want me to hit it, right? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. This is a platform, so I came with an interview mindset, so y'all got to let me switch gears right quick.
Switch them.
Okay, so here it is. We starting at a tragedy here. The tragedy was this, man. I grew up in Washington, D.C., right? Came from Southeast D.C. D.C. was a different type of culture. So my family came to New York in 1976. So that means I came here when I was 11 years old, but the culture of D.C. was deeply ingrained within me. So just to give you an idea of what that culture was like, one time in elementary school, I got in a fight with a kid that lived in the next building because we lived in the building at that time. That was the last time we ever lived in the building. From then on, we lived in private houses, right?
Okay.
So that was very significant in my mind because I had to deal with other people more so than any other time. So in this point, I got in a fight with a little kid. I came home, a kid my age. I came home and told my mother. So my mother went and got a hammer. My stepfather got the dog. And all of my brothers and sisters, we came outside and we actually had a fight with the other family. Right. And so the thing is that this happened several times in my life. So what that ingrained in me was that I couldn't come home and take a loss. I just couldn't. Like if I come home and say that anything happened, that had to be addressed. They had to know that I won. They had to see it for themselves.
Okay.
So that had to be addressed. So that was the mindset that I grew up with, and that kind of matured. So here it is. I come to New York. And I came, first of all, my family was already involved in the underground economy. Everybody in my family hustled. What does that mean, right?
Underground economy.
The underground economy is with the economy that exists in the black community. It was a mindset that goes with the economy. The mindset was this, is that, you know, I'm going to work or do whatever I got to do, but in reality, the majority of my sustenance or my wealth or whatever is going to come from the street. Okay. So I grew up with an example of duality where my family, they went to college, they had businesses and everything, but they was thriving. They was thriving in the street. So they was selling heroin, pollutant, Delorta. They was doing a bunch of different stuff. They was selling the stuff that they call lean right now. They was buying and selling that. Because they used to call that Tussin in D.C. Tussin. So Tussin, because it was like Robitussin cough syrup. Okay. So they make it from the cough syrup. They used to call it Tussin. So the thing is this, we was doing that like back in the 60s and 70s. As a kid, when I was growing up, my family was doing that. So I knew about that lean thing, but I didn't know anybody that messed with it. But in any event, so we had several lucrative things going on. So when I came up here to New York, it was such a different culture that me and my brother kind of clashed with the young guys because we moved up here to Uptown in the Bronx, and there was a lot of gang activity up here because the Black Spades was up here, Intercrime was in Edenwald, Peacemakers. So it was a bunch of shit going on. So when you go to the store or something like that for your mother, generally you get robbed for the cash on the way back. I mean, that was the reality of my life, right? So we was constantly in conflict with these gang members in our neighborhood who was like 5 and 6 years older than us, and my family was constantly coming from D.C. addressing shit because that's how they get down, because they was like the Beverly Hillbillies. So every time something happened, all my cousins come from D.C. with pistols and everything and go right over here and address the Chaos crew, the Gun Hill crew, the Black Spades, whoever it is. They come, if they took something from us, they come and get it back. Right. That's our history up here, right? So with that example, another thing that was important in my upbringing is that every man in my family went to jail for murder. And I was hearing these stories that they telling about. I'm going to tell you a story about my grandfather, and I think that stories are important, and I want to pepper my little journey with stories so that you could better understand me.
Do your thing.
So one time my grandfather was sitting in his car in D.C. At this particular time, he was selling heroin, of course. So he's sitting in the car, so somebody walked up to the car and tried to rob him. They put a revolver in his face. Mm-hmm. So I guess he was real daring. He took his finger and stuck it between the hammer and where the where the hammer could hit the chamber, right? The bullet, right? So he stuck his finger in there, reached under the seat, pulled out his German Luger, and murdered the guy, right? So he got 8 years for that. So now we going to see him in prison and stuff. As a kid, I'm going to see my grandfather. I'm hearing these stories. I got a stepfather that was out of control, that was totally feared in the street. So this was my ideal of manhood when I was growing up. These dudes ain't played no game, kept baseball bats in the car, kept pistols. In my house, it was pistols laying all over the house, all on top of the TV. We knew better than to mess with them, but it was pistols everywhere because that was just the mentality. One more thing, and then I'm going to go ahead into my real story.
I ain't rushing you. Take your time. This is your platform, brother.
One time we was living in D.C., and my moms and them, they was just really getting up with the heroin, right? They was just really building up. And this was right before my mother bought her first house, and we got raided. So now the police rappelled in the window from the roof. Now we live in an apartment building. They kicked the door down, came in the window. So I'm seeing all this as a kid. They run in the house, put the pistol in my face. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So we had one adventure after the other. So I was well seasoned mentally before I ever went in the street and engaged in the activity. And unfortunately, I knew exactly how to conduct myself in any situation that I may encounter. And I'm not saying that from a perspective of boasting or bragging or being proud of anything. It's a thing of knowledge of myself. Because all events that took place in my life, I reviewed them as I was in prison. So now let me get to what happened here. So what happened in this situation, I called myself being an enterprising individual. And I had access to a lot of people who was moving weight and stuff like that because, I was...
For the audience, moving weight, a lot of people don't know. You understand? So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
When you say moving weight, when you say package, all right, some people know, but a lot of people don't know. So for the people who don't know, clarify that, please.
Okay. So what happened is I knew a couple of people that was moving keys of coke, right?
Okay.
Because I was doing some things that put me in a position to have this knowledge, but they was not anybody that was close to me. So what I did is I put together a crew. And we went and we started taking that, right? And it was really something that I didn't have to do. It's just that I had a thirst for adventure.
Right.
Because I had a lucrative hustle with my family, low profile. Nobody knew what I was doing. Because I never told anybody because I felt like I had to protect my family, so I didn't share that information, right? And I just had a thirst for adventure in the street. I had a real desire to establish myself because I wanted to be like my stepfather and my grandfather and everybody. I wanted to be respected. Coming from that history of getting robbed in the neighborhood and stuff like that, I felt I had something that I had to make up for. I had to establish myself because I had to see these same individuals that was robbing me. So like when I got around like 13, 14 years old, I became vicious. I wasn't forgiving anything. I wasn't sociable at all because I was angry. Because I was really a kid that I would fight or struggle under any circumstances, but I took some losses that hurt me to my heart. I hated to have to go to somebody to get help, so I never let that go. And that's been a problem my whole life. I really don't know how to let things go. It's hard for me. I mean, I got a little better, but it was rough when I was growing up. So what happened is this, I put together this little crew, and we was running around, doing stick-ups and stuff. We was robbing drug dealers for the most part. Right. I mean, we did a few little other things along the way, but for the most part, that was our hustle. So in the process of us doing that now, in addition to doing that, I was transporting weapons from place because I was just a real adventurous individual. Right. So I was going and getting guns, bringing them back. I was renting gun to dudes to do whatever they need to do. I was lending them guns. So I had a bunch of shit going on. Okay. So like dudes that want to do a stick up or something, they'd come to me and be like, I'd be like, all right, just bring me something back. And I wouldn't even really try to hurt them or nothing. I just got to profit in some way. So I was really hustling, right? Right. So I had lent a gun to a particular individual, a .357 Magnum, right? And this was somebody I really trusted because this was somebody that I had in my crew where we was doing shit. Okay. So he came back to me. He told me, listen, I lost that gun. He said the police was chasing me, bang, bang, bang. And that was like really kind of like my pride and joy because that was something I really liked. So I said, it was no issue because I trusted him. So I made no issue out of that. So then what happened was we had planned something else because a friend of mine, his father was a manager at a paint factory on Hunts Point, and they had a real big payroll. So the guy gave me the information. So I said, okay, cool, we're going to get this payroll, right? So on the day we were supposed to do the payroll, the brother that I was supposed to roll with, he came to my house like 8 o'clock in the morning or something, and he lit up a joint. Well, when we got in the car, he gave me a joint, and he lit it, gave it to me. I took a couple of tokes on it. I could not move at all. I couldn't move, right? So I'm like, yo, as soon as he gave me that, I couldn't move. He started saying, yo, listen, man, I want to switch roles on this move right here. Rather than you being the driver, I want you to be the jump out man. This is what he told me. I was adventurous. I did that several times. I ain't had no problem being a jump out man, but I'm telling him, I said, yo, brother, I can't move. He said, yo, what you mean? I said, I can't move.
Right.
I couldn't move. So I told him this like several times. He still went and drove us to the stick up. So we drove to the stick up. So we had two guns.
Hold on. I don't mean to cut you off. So you can't move due to the fact that whatever you inhaled or whatever.
Whatever he gave me to smoke,
okay.
It incapacitated me.
Okay.
I couldn't move. I couldn't move, right?
Clear. Go ahead.
So we drive to the bank anyway because we are going to do the stick up in the parking lot of the bank. So we drive over there. We had a stolen car because we had already took somebody's car like a couple of days before that, because that's what we used to do. If we was going to do something like that, we'd go take somebody's car and go do it in their car, right? So we had a car, we went over there, and we sat and watched the man go in the bank with the payroll because I couldn't move. I couldn't drive or participate in the move. It was nothing I could do. So we just sat there and watched the guy go in and out. So after that happened, we drove to a friend of his house, and he got out of the car and left me in the car for like hours. So over time, I recovered my faculties to a degree. So we had a shotgun in the car that belonged to me, and we had another pistol. He took the pistol with him.
Right.
So I reached in the back and grabbed the shotgun, and I racked it. Now, the shotgun is what I was supposed to get out the car and do the stick-up with. This was my shotgun, but he had it in his possession because I told you I was giving out these guns, right? The gun he left out the car with was mine, too. So, boom, I pick up the shotgun, I rack it, nothing comes out. Mm-hmm. I said, hold up. I racked that motherfucker again, nothing came out. So I panicked, because I'm already not in my right state of mind. I panicked, I jumped out the car, and I ran to Montefiore Hospital, right? Right. So I went to the hospital, I said, yo, somebody gave me something. I don't know what they gave me, but I couldn't move for hours. I said, I need for y'all to do something for me. I sat in the hospital for hours. They did nothing for me. Just had me sit. You know how you go to the emergency room like back in the days? Right. It was crazy. I was there for hours, right? Yeah. So in the meantime, I just leave, and I go to the store. I get a carton of milk. I drink some milk because I'm assuming that I had some dust. I don't know what it was, but I know I couldn't move. So I drink some milk and shit like that. And I go to I go to Emma's place, right? And I'm down there gambling. So I'm playing dice in Emma's.
For the audience, everybody for the Bronx, Uptown knows Emma's place.
Right.
All right, for the people, because we reaching out. Listen, they listening to us in Jamaica.
Right.
Haiti. All right, DR. I got people that got deported to these places, and I told them to subscribe. Right. So we need to know, what's Emma's place?
Okay. Emma's place was a lounge, a social club beneath the T Connection. So the Emma's place happened to be just as famous as the T Connection because when you come out the T Connection, Emma's place was open because it was the after hours spot. Okay. So it was like really adults only, but I was a kid. I was up in there because I live right down the street.
And so what's the location is?
The location is Gun Hill Road in White Plains, right beneath the T Connection. So I lived at 211th Street, right down the block from Emma's place in the T Connection. Okay. So, I'm up in there. So I was a frequent, flyer in there on the CeeLo table because that was one of my hustles. So I was in there shooting CeeLo. I actually won that night. So when I came up out of Emma's, I ran into my man that hit me with the dust joint, and he was with another dude that we be moving with. Right. So they told me, they said, yo, where you going? So I'm still not all the way in my right state of mind. They say, where you going? I said, I'm going down to Lincoln Hospital. I'm getting ready to go uptown and get my car, and I'm going to go to Lincoln Hospital to pick my girl up because my girl got off at work at 7. I came out of Emma's at 6, right? In the morning. 6 in the morning. So I'm getting ready to go get my girl at 7. She worked at Lincoln Hospital. I said, I'm getting ready to shoot down to Lincoln Hospital, get my girl. I got to go uptown and get my car, right? Okay. So they said, nah, man, get in with us. We take you down there. I said, all right, cool. So I got in the car with them because I said, I'll just take a cab home.
Okay.
So I got in the car with them. Then they said, no, you drive. So I'm in the car. I'm driving right now. This is a stolen car. We had already stole this car some time ago. This is a stolen car. So I'm zooming down the highway to Bronx River. I'm going 100 miles an hour. We in the right lane. Mm-hmm. So it's a white station wagon coming, merging in the traffic. I fly by him 100 miles an hour. Right. He turns out to be the police. So he started chasing us down the highway. So I'm flying, right? Now, the way it used to be is that when you come off the Bronx River to try to merge to the Brooklyn, there used to be a red light. Matter of fact, it still is a red light there. Right. But if I'm not mistaken, where the school is there. Okay. But there used to be a precinct over there. Do you remember that? Anybody remember that? We got these civilians here or spectators? No, I'm just joking. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it used to be a precinct there. But either way, when I came off the highway right there, was an overpass, like the bridge where you could go over to like Lafayette and all that. You could go walk over there. Right. So when we came to the light, it was a bunch of traffic, so I couldn't get through there. So I said, yo, listen, y'all got guns on y'all? They said, yeah. I said, okay, y'all jump out with the guns. I'm going to stay here with the car. Because they more on the car. I said, jump out with the guns. Both of them jumped out the car. Would you believe both of them left their guns in the car? So now I got knocked for 2 guns in the car, right? Now the whole time we driving down the highway, I hear something banging in the trunk. Right. I hear something banging in the trunk. So, but I ain't paying it no mind. Now, when they get me in the precinct, they come in the precinct with a 3rd gun, which is the same 357 that I had gave to my man that he said he lost months ago, but it was in the trunk of the car, right? Wow. So I went in with 3 gun charges on that one, right? But I got out like next day, 2 days later or something, you know, because my people came and got me. Matter of fact, my brother and my girl came and got me, right? Right. So when they came and got me, I said, yo, in my mind, because at that point I stopped talking because I had some time to sit up like a day or 2 and my head cleared up a little bit. And I said, damn, well, I'm going to go see homie because this shit here is really not adding up too good. So what happened is I caught him over there by Hunts Point. And it was like on a cold Hummer, like over by White Castle. I don't know if you know where that's at on the Bruckner, but I caught him over there. And the brother pulled out on me and was shooting at me. I had to crawl underneath a bus to get away from him. I burnt my arm from my wrist all the way up to my shoulder, right? So I crawled under. The bus was live, like people was getting on the bus. I crawled under it and burnt my arm.
This is somebody that you were close with?
This is somebody that I trusted without question. So now when I was locked up and I started reviewing the events that took place with us, I realized that every time when we was handling money or handling any type of material, it was always a lot of motion going on. So I started thinking back, and I'm like, wow. So maybe all the time, you know, I was just being played, but I was trusting people because I would never cross you because I see you as a man. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to cross you. You a man. Right. So, and you my man. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. You would never have to worry about me crossing you because I just don't do that type of stuff. Because for me, that's like my pet peeve, a lack of loyalty, you know, that's not good. So that was my mindset at that particular time. So I was really trying to sort, because I couldn't believe it. Like, even though all that was coming to me, I wouldn't accept it. That's the reason I went over there and made myself vulnerable. I didn't even come with a pistol. Right. I went over there, ain't that I went, but when I saw him, I approached him unarmed. Right. Like, yo, man, try to help me understand some of this shit, because I'm a little bit confused, because there's a lot of fucking contradictions taking place here. Help me out a little bit, right? So that's the way I was going to approach, but I didn't even get a chance to get none of that out, because he went right into action. I'm like, whoa. So I got the fuck out of Dodge, right? So from that point forward, for me, and I mean, it was like immediate for me. I went right home, and I was sat home for like maybe an hour or so, and I just got an intuition. Something told me to go back out. Mm-hmm. And I went back out, and we had the Clash of the Titans. The thing about it is that when I ran into the brother was telling me what he was going to do to me, but I had my gun in my hand. I had cleaner's clothes over my gun. Right. And I'm talking to him, and the man is telling me what he going to do to me with my own gun. He was shooting at me with my gun. Mm-hmm. So he telling me what he gonna do to me, so I lost it, bro. At that point, completely lost it, and that was the end of that game, man. And you know, I mean, it ain't like I was really trying to work my way through that, big brother, but I couldn't find a way to work my way through it because I couldn't understand it, because it was something that I would never do. So now, and what happened next was this: like the next day, another brother brought the brother's family to my mother's house. They stood outside my mother's house with pistols and threatened my family, right?
Okay.
Now, I don't even live at my mother's house. That's the bad part about it. That ain't where I live at, right? But you brought somebody to my mother's house and stood outside my mother's house with pistols in your hand and was talking shit to my mother. My mother was up on the balcony with her pistol.
Violation.
Yeah, completely out of pocket. So now that was another situation. So that's how that went. So, I mean, I'm completely uncomfortable talking about this because when I talk about it, bro, it hurts me. It hurts me from this perspective that if I was a better thinker, that could have never happened. Right. Because the thing is this, is that I got warnings along the way, but I was so comfortable with myself that I didn't pay it any mind. And I would have just walked away, big bro. Like, just, all right, cool. I'm not even going to bother with this. But I let it go too far because there was so much ego involved. I couldn't accept that somebody was doing that. I just couldn't accept it. Right. All right, so now, from that, I ended up getting 30 years of life, brother. I had an opportunity to get 8 to 24 years, but I really felt, to be honest with you, I was on some real self-righteous shit. I thought I was right.
Just in case anybody missed anything, what did you get? How many years?
I got 30 to life.
And this is for the incident?
For both of those incidents.
Okay.
Two different incidents. One happened one day, one happened the next day.
Okay.
So I got 30 years to life for those two incidents, which was the minimum.
Okay.
I got the minimum, but that was a hell of a lot of time, right? So
out of that, what you do?
I did 26. But the thing is this, the only reason I did 26, let me tell my story.
Hold on, but you say 26 like it's nothing. You did 26 years?
I did 26 years, but the reason that it's nothing is it's not that it's nothing, but it was a break. And the reason I say that is because I actually got my sentence reduced to 15 years. Okay. And ended up doing 26 on 15. Because I kept fighting because I thought I was right. Like I'm saying, it took me 15 years, literally 15 years to reassess that situation and come to the conclusion that I really wasn't a good thinker, brother. Right. I thought I was right, man. And I carried that for years, man. And I was self-righteous with it. Anybody that approached me, I told them, see me in the yard. Right. No conversation. If you got a problem with anything, see me in the yard. That was my approach because I didn't want to talk to you. You hear my voice quaver or nothing. So as soon as you say something to me, I say, yo, come to the yard. Right. That stopped all conversation for me. I got right to the issue because I wasn't trying to get hurt. So I'm not going to sit here and talk to you and play with you and you tell me, oh, no, we all right and all that. Next thing you know, I get my head split. Gotcha. So I got right to the issue with everybody. So my thing is this. So now when I went to prison, brother, now you got to understand, I went to military school, I went to Catholic school, I went to private school the majority of my life until I came to New York, right? So I was a little bit advanced as far as education is concerned. I was like really advanced, honestly. Okay. So when I started trying to go to Olinville, I got in Evander, I was bored to death because it didn't challenge me at all because I was used to being educated in a different way. So I started looking for other things to occupy my mind and to occupy myself because school wasn't doing it. Because that's just like, I'm going to just give you another example. I went to Apex Technical School before I got locked up, right? I was taking diesel mechanics. So when I went inside the prison and started taking vocational classes, it couldn't hold my attention because they were shamming people, bro. They wasn't preparing you for anything when you come out. And being that I went somewhere and saw a real education, I couldn't even play that game. I went in there and tried to force them to teach me, and they kicked me out. Okay. All right? But back to the original story. So now that's my tragedy. That's my tragedy, and it's really devastating that it took that to build me into the man that I am. But to be really honest with you, it's sad and it's final as those situations are that I described. Brother, I think it's something that I had to go through to be sitting here with you today. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, I really think I had to go through it, and I'm sorry for the people that I hurt, and I'm sorry that I'm rekindling this situation. For anybody that may feel differently about this than I did or than I do, I deeply apologize because I'm not sitting here trying to glorify anything, but I'm trying to put things out so people can understand, is that I just really felt betrayed, and that was my fuel. That was the tragedy, that I didn't have any coping mechanisms to deal with that betrayal to prevent that situation from escalating. Right. So from that experience, maybe that's something we could start teaching. coping skills, some options in situations. As opposed to always reacting on our emotion and following what is presented to us as the street creed. And 99% of the time, the people that present it to us don't hold true to it. You understand, big bro? The same exact people that teach us this stuff and bring it to us, when they get under pressure, they go in the other direction. All right?
Yes, sir.
All right? But anyway, let me tell you something about a great woman. I want to tell you, thank you, man. I want to tell you about my mother, Gladys White, right? The reason that I feel like this is significant is that my mother was a damn giant, brother. My mother used to work at the, first of all, my mother had 4 kids. It's hard for me to keep up sometimes. We had 5 because I had a stepbrother. My mother had 4 kids. She grew up in D.C. She came from a background of hustlers, because my grandfather, unfortunately, was a pimp at one time and transitioned into a drug dealer. But the thing about it is that my family was from the South. They came from Mississippi and Tennessee. When they came up here, they came up like people did from the South. They came up here and broke the law and got into shit. I don't mean everybody from the South did that, but my people went to both sides. They went to school and they went in the street and found their way. Because remember that this was very shortly after slavery, so black people came with a certain type of culture, right? So they came from the South, they came up to the North, and they was wild. They was wild because they had been through some stuff. So they came up here, they established themselves with drugs, but they worked as a family. They worked as a unit. So this was the example that everybody in my family was well off. I had mostly everybody in my family from my grandmother's generation was intravenous drug users. They were so insulated in their life by having so many resources that if somebody wasn't really paying attention, they would have saw drug addiction from a different perspective. They eventually hit rock bottom, but they was cushioned because they was hustling hard. So they maintained it. So this is what we was exposed to growing up. They was money getters. Now, I had a matriarch in my family, my Aunt Ellen. She was the generation before my mother. She taught my mother. My mother was the matriarch in her generation, and she was a real dynamo. I mean, she was a real money getter. She was a money getter, and she provided for everybody. So everybody was all right. So this is the example I saw. So anytime I went to the street, that was the example I carried with me. It's no reason for me to watch you because I'm feeding you, I'm giving you, I'm putting you in position. So anything you need here, brother, you just bring it back or let me know or pay me for it or whatever. So it was always like an open door policy. So the last thing I expected is that somebody would do something like that because the model that I came from, people did little minor things that you could forgive them for, but they didn't do major things. You know, because you're going to have conflict all the time. So I didn't have anything to deal with that. I didn't have anything to deal with that. But what I did is this. So when I went to prison, my brother, what I did is I got lucky because my family had a little money. My mother paid a lawyer. And it wasn't that the lawyer helped me out of the situation because the lawyer thought that I was going to have enough sense to take a plea. So what he did is he told me, listen, man, I need you to start going to the law library. Because he thought that if I went to the law library that I would surrender. You understand my point? So I go to law library, but I'm pretty studious. I could, pick up stuff. So I start going up in there. I completely understood my situation. I had 2 dying declarations or excited utterances. And I'm going to tell you what that is. A dying declaration is when a person make a statement before they die saying that you're the person that killed them. Okay. So I had 2 different cases where the DA was trying to get these statements qualified as dying declarations. But they originally was introduced as excited utterances, which is not, dying declarations are devastating if you have that introduced in a murder trial. The reason that is devastating is because the criteria that it takes to introduce one of them, your fate is sealed once that comes into the trial. So an excited utterance is a little bit different because it's like, it's not the exact same, but it could even be hearsay because an excited utterance is what they call an exception to the hearsay rule. I don't want to really get too deep on that, but I'm a real live legal beagle, right? Okay. So the thing is this, I went there and I learned where I stood on these legal issues, but I kept seeing exceptions to everything. So him not knowing how I think, I'm a fighter. So I didn't see the surrender. I saw something different. So when the DA came and offered me 8 to 24, I told him, I said, if you give me an 8 to 16, I'll take it. That was what I told him because I was thinking about the CR. If you give me an 8 to 24, you're going to make me do 16 years.
Now, when you say, everybody don't know what CR is, so let me just cut you. All right, explain what CR is.
Okay, CR is what they call a conditional release date, right? Your conditional release date is 2/3 of your maximum. So if you do 2/3 of your maximum in New York, at least that was the law at the time that I came to prison. If you do 2/3 of your maximum, you could automatically be reduced from prison as long as you didn't do anything major in prison to get more time added to your sentence.
Okay.
So now I was already astute enough with the law and with prison practices or sentencing guidelines or whatever, like the parole board. I was familiar with that because I was studying. So I learned that 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do that 16 years on that 8 to 24. So as opposed to let her have the 24 on the end, I'm going to get her to put a 16 on the end. If she put a 16 on the end, the most I could do is 12.
But all along, they knew what they were doing when they did the 24.
Right.
Okay, got you.
Right.
They knew how it would affect you.
Right, and that was their plan.
Okay.
So now what it is that's like a ruse, because if you know you're going in with 2 very serious crimes, right?
Right.
It's highly unlikely that you was going to get out of jail on your first board or anything. It's like you could count on doing that CR. You understand? So I kind of knew that. And then with me seeing how difficult it was for me to accept the bullshit when I was there, I knew I was going to have a rough ride.
Right.
So I knew that wasn't the best plan for me. So I didn't do that, and I ended up going to trial and blowing trial and getting 30 years to life.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I was telling you about that wonderful woman in my life, which was my mother, right? So my mother paid $30,000 for a lawyer for me. The blessing that came out of that is I ended up getting a minimum, but that wasn't a real blessing. The blessing in that situation that man steered me towards the law library, right? That was the blessing. So now my mother was very wise and intelligent and everything, but the most thing that she was is that she was my fan. Okay. She was 100% into me. So no matter what situation I went into, man, I felt supported and protected. So when I went to prison, I felt like I was all right because my mother told me I was going to be all right. She said, baby, you ain't going to do no more than 10 years. My mother told me, she said, baby, you ain't going to do no more than 10 years on that 30. Now, look what my mother told me in addition to that. My mother came to visit me one time, right? I got to tell this story, right? Because my brother and them had robbed the house next to me. My brother and my man, this dude named Orv, they had robbed the house next to me. I had nothing to do with it. I woke up and walked out the side door and saw them coming out to people's house. I didn't have anything to do with it. So they went in there, robbed the people's house. So it ended up being some Haitian people. So what they did is the Haitian community came and circled around the house and was chanting and a bunch of shit. My brother and them said that when they went in there and robbed the house, there was a dead body in the basement in a coffin. So this was the Grand Poobah. Because the only way that they would preserve your body or have your body like that is that he had to be the leader of the religious community for sure, right? So they then went and robbed the Grand Poobah's house. You understand? The Grand Poobah of voodoo. In case you don't understand what I'm saying, right? Okay. So now they went and robbed the Grand Poobah's house. So what happened is this. Now, my mother ain't tell me this until years later. The Haitian people went and worked some stuff on my mother. The reason that it worked on me is because I was my mother's favorite. Okay. So they attacked me. So my mother said she found this out because she went to some Africans and got some stronger stuff to try to see what was going on, and they told her that these people put that on her. The reason that she knew it was true is because they described the day that my brother and them robbed the house. They said that I was standing there watching, which I wasn't. I saw it after the fact. I wasn't standing there watching, but they didn't attack me because they thought I had something to do with it. They attacked me because they felt like I was my mother's favorite. Okay. So this was her theory that she brought to me, and the reason that she told me that I would only do 10 years because these people told her that. But I'm going to give you a good coincidence. Look at this coincidence. I got a reversal at 10 years. Okay. I was supposed to come home, but strangely, my lawyer died of a heart attack on the way home after he went and negotiated with the DA. I was supposed to get out. And then, wow. My lawyer died, right? Strangely, he went to the hospital. The doctor checked him out and everything, said he was all right because he was feeling chest pain. Right. When he left the hospital, he died of a heart attack. So, I mean, it's challenges along the way. So I'm down there at Rikers Island. So that hinders you that he died? Well, yeah, because he was my representative, because the result that he was getting from the case was based on who he was. Okay. It didn't have nothing to do with the case whatsoever. Gotcha. You understand my point?
Juice card.
for the most part. Gotcha. So it was based on who he was. And when he passed away, they ran roughshod over me, right? And not only that, I was a little arrogant too, right, bro? Because I really thought that I was in a good position legally. Because when I got that case reversed, I thought I was in a power position, right? So I went there and tried to talk to them like, yeah, well, I'm willing to go to trial. Man, the DA said, listen, man. I said, well, I said, I got such and such time, man. Why don't you give me this or that? He said, all right, I'm willing to give you that if you go see a psychologist. So he wanted me to go see a psychologist. He said he would put the stamp on me being released. I said, oh, yeah. I went to see the psychologist, right? And I saw him in Manhattan Criminal Court. Mm-hmm. When I went to see the psychologist, the dude came in the room and sat down and said, tell me about your case. I said, freeze, player. Mm-hmm. I said, listen, do you have a name?
Right.
You got a name, bro?
Right.
He said, oh, my name is, whatever he said his name was, right? So I said, well, listen, is this generally how you deal with your clients, man? I said, you came in, you didn't introduce yourself to me at all. You got a very antagonistic attitude, and then you asked me about something that I've never discussed with anybody, and you really think that I'm going to discuss that with you? Like, come on, bro. So he said, well, listen. He said, right now I'm working for the state. He said, I charge fees privately on the side. That's what he told me. So basically, he telling me if I give him some money, this may work to my advantage. Mm-hmm. I was willing to give him some money. But the problem was this. I don't like your attitude. Because if you advertising something, how you going to come to me with an attitude like that? Right. Why would I have confidence to give my money to you? Man, I'm not messing with that dude. So that went downhill fast. Okay. So then he came, so he's interviewing me doing a psychological evaluation. And I'm like, man, listen, I'm really uncomfortable, man. You don't think you could get somebody else to do this? Because I knew the result before we even got there. Because I said, man, your energy is like terrible, man. Right. And I'm talking to him. I'm like, man, your energy is really bad, man. And the man he said, listen, either you want to finish this or you don't. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got shot in the head on that one. So what ended up happening, I went back up north with 15 to life, right? Okay. So that's how I ended up doing 26 years on 15 because I went to the parole board 7 times. So I got 11 years from the parole board, all right? Let me tell you about my journey in prison now, right?
I'm listening.
First of all, when I first went to prison, I got paralyzed, right? I went to the woman's house. I went to C-74 first. Then I went to the woman's house in like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So when I went to the woman's house, my girl ain't know no better. She bought me all these Munson-wear nylons and BVDs and pajamas and slippers. I'm talking about she bought me a whole, but the Munson-wear was the exclusive joints. That was the soft nylon joints, right? That come from like Montgomery Wards. I don't know if a lot of you see. That was stuff she got from D.C., right? Okay. So check it, right? So I'm in there, I'm flashing all these nylons and shit. So I go on my cell, and the dude come to my cell, sticking the ice pick in my cell, talking shit to me, talking about, yo, slide the nylons out and do this and that. I said, yo, brother, why you scaring me like that, man? Mm-hmm. You know, man, I start looking around. I saw a desk right there. Man, I kicked that damn desk until I could get the leg off there. Mm-hmm. When I got the leg off, I ended up getting 2 pipes. I got a long pipe like this and a short pipe. So I broke the pipe, and it was some hollow. The pipes was hollow, but I was getting ready to get busy, right? So check it what I did. I ripped the pocket out of my pants. I put the long pipe down in my sock, right? Mm-hmm. So I was going to have my hand in my pocket. As soon as the action started, I'm coming up with the pipe, and I'm going to get busy, right? Right. So I had the long pipe. At first I said, nah, let me put this back. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave the pipes here. I'm going to go ahead to breakfast. And if something happened when we come back, I'm going to, get busy or whatever. Man, I went outside, and a couple of dudes ran up on me. And this little dude I remember his name to this day. This little dude ran up on me and punched me in the face. Bow! Right? Jabbed me right in the face as soon as I came out. I didn't even respond to him because I had a bigger issue, right? I got him eventually. But I let him get off with that, right? So he went to these other dudes and said, yo, man, I just punched that motherfucker in the face. They said, oh, yeah, what'd he do? They said he didn't do nothing. He said, go punch him in the face again. So he can't punch me in the face again. Pow! No problem. Because I know I got something with this other dude that was sticking his ice pick in my gate. So I'm letting the little man get his head right. So we go to breakfast, right? We go to breakfast. And when we come back, this dude got the nerve to get on the phone. The dude that was standing there putting the ice pick in my cell. Man, I ran over there with that pipe. I put the 226 on him. I broke his arm. I beat him down. Now, after I beat him down, I ran down the hall and knocked the little man out. Bah! Because I wanted to make sure I got him first. Okay. Bap, knocked little man out. So now I still had the pipe on me. When the police came out the bubble with a scrub brush, right? Mm-hmm. So he said, you put the pipe down, put the pipe. Anyway, they broke me the fuck up, bro. I was in a wheelchair for like...
Okay, so... Yeah. Okay, so that's how you got paralyzed.
That's how I got paralyzed.
Okay.
And so I told you the incident building up to it. So I got paralyzed temporarily. That happened to me twice when I was in prison. Police beat me down. I couldn't move. I'm in a wheelchair, a whole bunch of shit. All right, so that was my first. So my mother came to see me. This was the first time her coming to visit. They wheeled me out in a fucking wheelchair, bro. Wow, and I just got there.
That broke her down.
Man, oh my God, man. You talking about a rough situation? That was rough, man. So I'm saying, listen, Ma, I promise you I'm going to be all right.
That hurt to see that.
Oh my goodness. And I just got there. And then look at how serious the situation is.
And you the pride and joy.
And I'm a heart, right? Mm-hmm. So shit, that was cracking her, right? So, man, eventually, man, my mom's ended up start smoking crack, man. And I'm saying my mother was smoking crack for years. I didn't even know. Nobody told me nothing. I'm wondering what because my mother was a real soldier. And I said, damn, Mom would be coming to see me, man. Like, yo, what's going on? Right. So nobody would tell me what's going on. So finally I found out some type of way. I don't remember how I found out. Somebody eventually told me. So I called my brother. I'm like, yo, bro, why don't you go chain Ma up somewhere or something, man? You gonna just let her be on crack. I ain't know nothing about crack, bro. I had never seen crack. I saw some people basing before and shit like that, but I wasn't here for the real crack epidemic. Okay. So I didn't understand that shit. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. So I never saw nothing take no grip on nobody. So I didn't understand. So I'm telling my brother, I'm saying, yo, bro, man, what the fuck is you doing, man? Chain her up or do something. So now this is the shit I'm going through in prison. Mm-hmm. Now this didn't happen. This happened when I'm in prison, right? So now another thing is that I was rebellious, man. And once I learned that law, I was helping other people out. So I constantly had problems with the police. I attacked conditions. We not getting laundry. Yo, they feeding us this bullshit. I just started doing shit because really, to be honest with you, I was miserable. And the reason I was miserable because I had motherfuckers, you know, treating me with racist. You got racist police. You got these big black motherfuckers running around beating the shit out of motherfuckers, thinking everybody's. It was stressful, bro. So what I was trying to do, I was trying to push back at them to get them up off of us because they had us under pressure, bro, like oppression for real. It was deep. So I started trying to push back, so I learned how to use the pen. Okay. That law worked to my advantage. I started learning how to use a pen. So I was stepping up in situations, my brother. I knew what to do. I learned how to write to IG and do this and that. So I'm like, yo, man, they beat the brother down, blah, 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 blah. So I started coming like that. They didn't appreciate that, man. Right. Not at all. So I had this real antagonistic relationship.
You got a smart one here.
Yeah, they didn't like that. So what they was doing with me, look at this, right? Every time they had something called your floor card. I forgot what else they call it. But every time you go to court, if you stab somebody on Rikers Island or get in a fight with the police or hit the police in the head with a pipe, they put that shit on your fucking card. They go to court. Mm-hmm. So every time I was going to court, the judge was reading this shit. They like, yo, what the fuck is going on with this dude? And I'm telling my lawyer, yo, you don't really understand how it is over there, bro. This shit is like out of control. So every time I'm going to court, the judge is like, yo, what the fuck? How he get all these separations? Because I had a long list of motherfuckers that couldn't come around me. So they like, yo, what the fuck is... I'm like, yo, I'm defensive. I don't fuck with people. I wait till a motherfucker fuck with me. I don't do nothing to nobody. So that's the type of... And I help people. Like, if it's a weak motherfucker getting taken advantage of, I step up. So that's the type of person I was. But it was a lot of racism on Rikers Island, my brother. And what was happening is this. Even though the brothers was in the majority... When the Spanish brothers got a stronghold on something, a brother's ass was out because they stuck together and they got fucking busy. Now, I never even experienced racism. I experienced racism from white people in D.C. because in D.C. it was just really basically black and white. It was I never seen a Mexican, a Spanish, a Puerto Rican, nothing until I came to New York. All I knew was black and white. You understand? If I saw somebody Spanish, I probably thought they was white. So I come up here in the Bronx, New York, or wherever in New York, never experienced any racism in my life, not from those Spanish people. So I had no clue that Spanish and black people had problems until I went to prison. That shit was a fucking shock to me, bruh. Right. I never experienced that nowhere. Spanish people, to me, was the coolest motherfuckers on the planet. The dudes that lived in my neighborhood and the people that I encountered with Spanish, I never felt threatened by them. I never went in a Spanish neighborhood and went through anything. Right. So when I went to prison and I felt the level of that motherfucking hate and antagonism, brother, I was like, yo, man, this shit here remind me of like slavery or something. Not really, but the level of the But the thing is, I didn't understand their story. They had a story too. But all I did is I came in on the tail end. I came in on the end where it was all this antagonism that I didn't understand, but I knew to go with my people. So the majority of my problems came from the racial divide that existed there. That's the main thing that was going on with me. And that made my road a little rough, but rough from the perspective that I was a proactive individual.
Okay.
I was extremely proactive.
CLR. So I'm not trying to cut you off. Okay, so be clear. That was your tragedy.
Yes.
That was your tragedy.
110%.
Okay. You want to add something on to that?
Well, what I want to add on to that is that in your travels, you go through a lot of stages, particularly a lot of us that go to prison young. And I didn't really realize the effect that my conduct was going to have on my future. So all that shit that I was going through and doing and shit like that prevented me from getting out of prison, brother. That was basically what I was building up to. So when I was going through them 7 parole boards and all that, right. I'm sitting there thinking that I'm some type of victim. But the thing is this, that these people document and record everything. They record everything. So here it is 15, 16 years later, I'm being punished for some shit that I did when I first came to prison. That was my point.
Gotcha.
You got me, big bro? Now, I think I peppered that up enough. I don't know. I know I was kind of all over the place in the process of doing that.
No, you wasn't. You was clear. That was your tragedy. Hold on. Right. That was your tragedy. That's what you went through. You wasn't all over the place. You was clear. And the message you definitely got out there was you cannot trust, all friends are not your friend. All right? I'm talking about the guy that crossed you, betrayed you. All right, that was a friend at some point.
No, I thought he was a friend.
Okay,
and all the way up until
so everybody is not your friend, and that was the message here, along with because that incident messed up your whole life. Well,
it wasn't the incident that messed up my life, in my opinion. It was my decision making as a result of that incident.
Okay.
So the reason that I put it like that is because a lot of us talk about helping the youth and come up with programs to help the youth. A lot of times all we got to do is look at some of these incidents that we had and figure out where our decision making failed and teach the youth how to work through those type of situations. I think that's a hell of a solution. So my thing is this, at least in my own introspection, I know it was my decision making. Now let's transition to my triumph.
Great.
Can we go there? Okay,
good.
I kind of feel like I was being prodded, so let me try to get there now.
No. I definitely, you know what? That was a lot. To go through.
Right. I mean, but I never felt like a victim, to be really honest with you, bro. I never felt like a victim because anger pulled me through that, man. That's crazy. And the problem that I have sometimes now is that you rely on anger so much that when you don't need it no more, sometimes you got to find, it takes time to get it back to where it was. But I relied on anger to get through that situation because I just couldn't deal with. The main thing that it was rough for me, man, was just accepting that outright hatred and anger from them officials, man, them COs and civilians and shit. And I'm like, I just couldn't accept it, man. So I was just doing some angry shit. Cause I'm like, yo, man, who gave these people license to treat us like this?
I understand.
Yeah. So let me get to my triumph, man. Listen, brother. I went to the.
Hand clap. Hand. Triumph. There you go.
All right. Thank you. All right. Listen, I went to the parole board, right? My first parole board was in 1999. When I went to the parole board, I told them people, I said, listen, when I get home, I'm going to counsel the youth. I promise you, if you let me go, you'll never hear from me. I was lying like a motherfucker, bro. Okay. I came up with a plan to try to get out of prison, man. I told them what I felt was the best thing to tell them, bro. I didn't really know what I was going to do. They gave me 11 years to figure it out. So when I went there and told them people that story that first time, by the time they let me go, I was really determined to go somewhere and share my story with the youth, brother, because I had to grow into that lie that I told them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Hand clap. That's what's up.
I did it. Look, the reason that I felt I had to grow into it is because when I was going there and telling my story to the parole board, I just felt that it lacked substance so much because I didn't even really believe it. So what I started doing, brother, I said, listen, if I don't make some changes in myself, I'm not going to make it. Not only am I not going to make it in here, if I get a chance to get it to the street, I'm not going to make it. So I got to do something different. So I actually started internalizing some, but I was going to programs and stuff like that for a long time, but my growth was slow in coming, man. Mm-hmm. But when I was going to them parole boards and feeling that pain from not being released and feeling that hopelessness and despair that I might not ever get out of prison, and my greatest fear was to die in prison, brother, that was the greatest deterrent that I ever experienced in my life. And it was that, I mean, when I got in my deepest moment of pain, I made a decision, brother. I said, listen, man, whatever I got to do, man, whoever I got to help or whatever this situation takes, I can't take this fucking pain here no more, man. That pain was like a deep fucking heat. You ever felt like when you in a house and the heat don't work and you turn on the fucking oven and the oven gets so oppressive? That's how that fucking heat, the pain was that you feel in prison. The shit is palpable. You can feel, it's like you could put that shit in a box and it's everybody's pain combined. You talking about some miserable shit. The walls in prison sweat, bruh. The motherfuckers are miserable. You hear me, man?
Yes.
Bruh, it's no feeling like that in the world to feel all that pent up emotion and anger and hatred. Yo, bruh, I mean, if it's, I don't even have the words to describe it. So that is a great deterrent right there to never have to experience that shit. Now, I'm getting to my triumph, but I'm trying to tell you that I was propelled to create a triumph for myself. I was in Auburn prison. I remember this vividly. I heard reggae, salsa, rap, motherfuckers on the gate talking. Imagine all this shit at one time. Motherfuckers going crazy, kicking the wall. That was my greatest motivation. I said, I never want to come back to this shit, right? So what I started doing, I started enmeshing myself and engaging myself with individuals that was progressive in the prison. Because when I came in, I saw people that I didn't want to be. I sought out people that I did want to be, like the brother Jalil. Jalil is a brother, Montekim. His name was originally Anthony Bottoms. He was one of the members of the Black Liberation Army, but he was in prison teaching human rights classes, right? So he's one of the brothers I sought out. Teddy Heath, the brother Kahim. I started seeking out brothers to be taught different things, all type of different things, history and different other stuff. So what I did in the process of that is I started going to programs. Okay. And in prison, programs are like community service organizations. So you go there, you socialize with people that are progressive. Mm-hmm. So when I started doing this type of stuff, I had a really, really indelible experience because I went into a program called the Road to Redemption. Okay. The Road to Redemption was a program that was designed to prepare brothers for the parole board, right? But in addition to that, it was also a victim offender awareness program. So in this particular program, we had people coming in from outside telling their stories of being victimized. And one time I had this lady come in and she told a story about how her son was murdered and how she came out the house and saw him laying on the sidewalk and heard him breathe his last breath. When she's told that story, bro, I feel like she was talking to me because that actually happened in one of my situations too, because one of the brothers got shot and his brother came outside and saw him on the street. Bro, that broke me all the way down. I think that experience right there was the thing that made me at least become a little bit more reserved and less willing to hurt people, because at first I had 100% desire to go in that direction when I'm wronged. Right. But I said I got to work away from this space. So that experience right there helped me quite a bit. So when I told the parole board that lie originally in 1999, by the time I was released in 2010, that lie was the truth, because I was doing so much teaching and mentoring in the prison, and I had actually made some connections to make that a reality, which was to go into that youth counseling. So now I'm giving them employment letters and etc., right? Mm-hmm. So now I came home, I had no clue how I was going to get into youth counseling or anything like that. I suffered for a minute. I came home, I was married. I got married around 2006 I got married, right? I got married to a woman. I'm talking about this woman, she was so beautiful. And the reason I say that, she never missed a visit, never missed a phone call. The phone was never blocked, never missed a package, anything like that. She wrote it out for real. Okay. And this was the nephew of a good brother, right, that I knew up top, right? But I knew a twin sister in the street. So now I came home, and me and this woman only made it for 1 year in the street. So we talk about tragedy. That's one of my tragedies that I want to add on to, because before I came home, I never wanted to be one of them brothers that abandoned a sister that supported you while you was inside, but we just could not get along, brother. I tried
That happens. That happens. And you can be friends. You just don't get along.
Well, we tried that, but we don't even speak right now, but that's another tragedy. So now my thing is this, brother. I got some things I need to work through in addition. But anyway, so I found my way. Now, what I did is this. My man Joe Black, right? My brother, right? That's my brother-in-law. He called me one day, and now I hadn't worked for a year. It took me a whole year to get a solid job when I came home, a year. I had little odd jobs along the way. Joe Black called me one day. He said, yo, see, I'm supposed to go to this job fair, but I got something else to do. Can you go in my absence and take notes for me? Okay. I said, absolutely. So it was right over on Gun Hill Road by Laconia. It was in a church over there. So I go over there to the church. As soon as I walk in the church, I can see that the people in there are not the normal people that I see at job fairs. Because normally I see people like me that are job seekers. It was no job seekers there at all, maybe 3 or 4 people. Everybody in there was either politicians, news people, executive directors from organizations, and you could see it because you could see it was a different caliber of people. Mm-hmm. So when I walked in, I said, oh, shit, this is some other shit. So when I went in, I got next to a brother named Green Eyes that I knew. He did 25 years. He was, somewhere big in one of them programs. To make a short story shorter, I got up in that forum right there and told my story. After taking the notes from my brother-in-law, Joe Black, I got up in that forum, told my story, and got my first job. I started working at a place called Claremont Neighborhood Center, and the reason, holla. Now look at this. I went from 0 to 60 in no time flat. I went from making little money here and there on odd jobs to making $30,000, and that was in 2011, right? Started making $30,000, so I felt like I came up. I felt like I had arrived. Now, this brother Abraham Jones believed in me. He spoke up. Now, first, I'm gonna please let me tell this story, right? I went there to the forum. It was a brother there named Divine Pryor, right? He's a well-known individual in the reentry circle, but he's a person that influences policy in reentry. So he was speaking up on the mic when I told my story. He said, brother, I'm gonna have you working in 30 days. This is what he said. So somebody else in the audience got up and said, listen, I'm going to have you working in 2 weeks. The good brother Abraham Jones, who was the executive director of Claremont Neighborhood Center, he said, listen, brother, this is people jumping up in the crowd, right? He said, brother, when I came here today, I was looking for a case manager. He said, I didn't know how I was going to find that case manager. He said, when you got up and started talking, you was actually interviewing for the job, and you didn't even know. Right. He said, you got the job. Now, look. Real, man. That's always real. So now I started working at Claremont Neighborhood Center as a case manager in a young fathers program, helping young black and Hispanic men be reunited with their families, right? That's what's up. That was real, right? So now what happened was, so what we did is we provided the therapeutic programs for them after ACS intervened in their life, took their kids, supervised their visits with their kids or whatever. So I'm talking about that was a very rewarding job, because the day when they completed their programs and their kid was able to come in without any permission from ACS or anything, the kid would run straight to me. Okay. I don't know I don't know who was telling you. The kids, we had a long hallway that the kids had to run down to get to the ceremony. Like the kids would run full steam and jump on me. And I said, is somebody but bro, that made me feel so good, man, that I was reuniting them families. And it was some real shit. It was some real shit. Yo, bro. I felt so good. And then I felt like I was challenging the system to a degree, right? Because in the process of working with ACS, sometimes they got to make some bad decisions. And if you look from the outside, they look like some harsh and cruel individuals, right? And maybe I'm not in a position to really make that type of judgment, but that's what I thought at the time. So I was so happy to be helping these people get back with their kids. Don't get me wrong, people was making some bad decisions, bad judgments, and et cetera. And I see the balance in that right now. But at the time, I saw some situations where it was unnecessary to take people's kids, so I felt like a real champion, my brother, all right? Gotcha. So that was my start in human services, right? And I want to give some honor to the good brother Abraham Jones, because if it wasn't for him, that would have never happened. He gave me my first start. Abraham Jones, my dude, right? Not only that, he took me in kind of like as a mentee too. He did a lot more than just give me a job, and he just kept entrusting me with more responsibility, right? Only reason I left that job because I found a job that gave me a little bit more money, that I was deceived to think that I was going to have a lot of interactions with kids that's in juvenile detention centers. But when I got to that job, it was like 85% physical. Something completely different than what I thought. But nonetheless, I stayed there because I felt I could be effective, and I was working on getting the administration to allow me to make presentations to the brothers because I felt like I had so much to impart, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, I had put together a presentation called Overcoming Barriers to Reentry, right?
Right.
And I was shopping my presentation around. I was going into Queensboro, Edgecombe, and these different work release facilities doing this presentation. And what I was doing, I was sharing my experiences when I came home and telling brothers, and sisters, how I overcame the challenges that I faced. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was kind of giving them insight and a little head start. In addition to that, I had this particular presentation geared towards teaching the family and community how to support people when they come home from prison. Okay. So I always wanted to do this consultant type thing with this public speaking. So that was my platform. Right. And I had a measure of success. I was going around the churches, community centers, etc. I was making a little money, but I lost my patience and I lost my connection with my dream, because that was actually my dream. Okay. But I lost the connection in the daily grind of trying to make it work and etc. Right? So I sacrificed my dream. I said, when I first came home, my plan was to come home and start a low-cost legal assistance program for poor and dispossessed people, because I really felt like that was my gift, to give back like that.
Right.
As soon as I got here, the reality hit me. That got so far away from me, brother, I don't even think I thought about it again. Because when I got out here and saw how things was, I saw how difficult it was to relate socially with women. I mean, that was devastating to me, to see the change in attitudes of women, and just to see the breakdown of the family and see the kids so misdirected. And I was like, it was devastating. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had to try to come up with some type of solution, but I didn't know where to start. Right. And then a lot of times when you approach the young people, they so disrespectful and so disconnected from you that it's kind of discouraging, because, I mean, as a man, I can only take so much, because even though I was a terror growing up, I didn't disrespect adults. Right. That was something I just didn't do, right? We didn't do that. Like, it was different for us. We didn't do that, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like foreign. So I went from Claremont Neighborhood Center, I went Episcopal Social Services. I stayed there a couple of years. It was rough, bro. You talking about a stressful job? It's very rarely that you met a happy individual working that job. And that's working in them residential juvenile detention centers like group homes. Mm-hmm. And it's just the kids run amok in there, bro. And it's like, for the most part, once a kid get into them group homes or in the juvenile detention center, in a lot of cases, you could write them off because they be corrupted, like, for real. Sometimes they get it back together on their own, or maybe they may meet a significant person, but them systems are corrupting, man.
Let me just cut you off real quick. So it's clear. You've never been back to prison once you got out.
Well, I got arrested one time on Coney Island. I went to Coney Island and bought a nutcracker and got arrested. And they said that I was the one selling the nutcrackers. I said,
you never went back to prison?
No, never back to prison.
Never went back to jail?
No, never.
Let me get a hand clap, man.
Oh, okay.
Let me get a hand clap. All right? There are people out here that successfully completed parole, did the right thing, turned their life around, and this is the audience that I want in that chair right there. Come tell your story, man. Come tell your story. All right? See Allah, I ain't trying to cut you off. I know you can go on for days, brother.
Forever.
All right? Thank you.
Can I tell you where I'm at right now in my life, at least? Because I think that this is my real triumph.
Come on,
what I just did recently, man, I was working at a place called Exodus Transitional Community, which is a phenomenal place. The reason I think it's so phenomenal is because they help so many people. They help me. They help me to sharpen my teeth in the human service field where I feel comfortable enough to do anything. But just so happened, I don't even want to do human service anymore. And the reason I don't want to do it anymore is because it has changed drastically from my perspective. And what I mean by that is this, is that the way that people come home from prison right now is completely different than it used to be. People come home with no ID, no GED, didn't do no programs, but then they come home with attitudes also. So they coming into these programs and like demanding and trying to bully people and stuff like that. And I just felt so unappreciated because I go so hard for people. Anybody that know me from over there, bro, I go hard for the folks, man. I be calling people on Sunday, Saturday night, etc. But to make a short story shorter, bro, I did the biggest and most courageous thing in my entire life, which is I walked away from a job that was paying me $50,000 to walk into what I feel is my real success and what's going to contribute to my wealth, which is being an entrepreneur and being independent.
See Allah,
the God.
all right? Y'all tune in this Sunday. Watch the interview. See Allah. Y'all heard the story. You can put a hand on them. You can touch it. You can Google it. You can go down to the court building, second floor, pay your money, and get the transcripts. All right? The stories are real. All right? The message is real. Be clear. Come up. State your claim. Tell your story. All right? You owe it to the hood, man. All right? You owe it to the youth. Come tell your story right here. Defeated Tragedy to Triumph. Each and every Sunday, 6 o'clock. Tell a friend. All right? It's all real here, man. It's a platform. All right? We out of here, man. DJ Hands.
Holla.
See Allah. Thank you again, brother. The message was real. Thank you.
You're welcome, my brother.
Peace.
Only the real. Only the real.